And we are off.
All right.
We are with Jason Krueger, candidate for the Airport Authority. And this is the Journal Star editorial board interviewing him for a possible editorial board endorsement. So we'll have the edit board members introduce themselves, and then Jason, you'll do a whole lot of the rest of the talking.
Okay.
So, John, you want to start up there?
Sure. My name is John Schreier. I'm one of our assistant city editors here, and I've been on the editorial board for just shy of 4 years.
Martha?
I'm Martha Florence, and I'm one of the community members on the editorial board.
Kent?
Kent Walgamot. I write about arts and entertainment for the paper, and I've been on the editorial board for, I think, 12 years, maybe longer.
Just seems like that. Robbie?
I'm the controller for the Journal Star, and I've been on the edit board about 3 years, I think.
And Robbie really is live. He's just very still.
Okay.
All right. So Jason, first question for you. Airport Authority is not the highest profile elected office around. What prompted your interest in running for the Airport Authority, and what has prepared you to serve?
Well, I'm not running to be high priority or high profile, I guess I should say. So that wasn't the reason for running, which, you know, some people, that is their reason for running. My main reason, my little 30-second pitch is I ran because I'm against the levy. I think probably at this point the levy is going to go through, but I think that the airport needs to look at alternate revenue streams to pay for that airport expansion of $56 million instead of burdening the property taxpayers limited to the city of Lincoln. So that's a lot for a small portion of people to take on, that the majority of the state people use the airport. So I actually started kind of looking into some stuff that could maybe possibly be done on the with their property that they have, as far as development and rental and use. I know they can't sell it, and that's fine, but I think there's opportunities out there, especially on the north and the west side of the airport, to do something to get a little more revenue rolling with some kind of development.
Well, I'll tell you what, we will come back to that question because Kent's going to ask that again later on to get in a little bit deeper. So to finish the second part of that, what's prepared you to serve? What kind of experiences have you had that have been useful?
Well, as far as the airport itself, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have any experience looking at or running an airport, but I do have a degree in mechanized systems management. I did a lot of project management and operations management in the past that would, especially on a project that's as big as this, $56 million. I think somebody that's been in construction and done projects, I'll admit the biggest one I did was like 25 or $6 million. It was a grain elevator. But I've done other construction work and project management, and I think that would help a lot to have somebody on the board that's watching that. Also, I own my own business. I've owned Kitchen Tune up here in Lincoln for 3 years, or just a hair over. And, you know, so looking at the, you know, the financials too, I'll understand those more than maybe someone just off the street would.
Okay. So you answered a sort of similar question, but I want to try to take it a different direction from what you said in the voter's guide. The COVID changed the way people travel, which had a huge impact on the airport. What do you think are the short-term and long-term challenges that the way COVID changed the way people move around that the airport's going to have to deal with?
Well, again, I think sanitation is one of the things that they're going to have to do. I would imagine someone on the staff, or they may have to add someone to the staff that basically goes around with, you know, a disinfectant, and they're wiping things off and just trying to keep things clean in that regard, which, you know, they've not had to do in the past. Again, I don't know if that can be done with current staff or not. Especially with the new airport, it'll be bigger. It'll have, I believe, 8 gates instead of 2. So they're, you know, they're not planning on really having to add a lot of staff of their own, because most of the, like, the gates are manned by the airlines. They're not manned by airport authority employees or airport employees here. So they really don't think they're going to have to add much in personnel out there. But again, with the COVID, they may have to. Long term, I don't know. It's really hard to say long term how this is going to go. So, you know, I honestly, personally thought this would probably be over by now, but they keep pushing it and changing the goalposts and as far as COVID's concerned. So it's hard to say what'll happen. I don't, you know, I'm not a fan of the vaccination passport, they're kind of calling it. I mean, that would be something if they did mandate that, then, you know, you've got to have somebody there to take care of that too. So.
Well, you talked a little bit about the project and the expense of it. That's, you know, there's a lot involved in spending $45-50 million. If you looked at that project, what would you say? I mean, is it bigger than it needs to be? How should things be prioritized? If, you know, so a lot of that's water under the bridge at this point, but I'm kind of interested in where you're coming from on what needs to be taken care of at the airport and what's reasonable to spend.
Well, it's hard to answer that. So what I have called, what the board so far has done, and I like the board. I don't want people to think I'm against the people that are there. I'm going to, you know, work really hard to work with the people there if I get elected. But to me, the board has the Field of Dreams attitude. You know, if you build it, they will come. And I'm not 100% convinced that that's going to be true. You can have the floors gold and the walls marble and, you know, ceilings of glass in there, but if the airlines aren't there or the prices are way too high to justify going here instead of Omaha or Kansas City, then that doesn't really matter. So you know, I agree that something needs to be done. I don't know to what extent, though, I would say the dollar amount should be. I just think that they you know, need to concentrate also on getting some airlines in here. And I know they are. Again, I'm not trying to make it sound like they're not doing their job or they don't know what they're doing, because that's not the case. But you know, and one other thing I'll bring up that probably should have been answered in the first question about why and what it's about for me. I've noticed in my research trying to figure out stuff out there at the airport that they're very untransparent about what they're doing. They like last week in the meeting, they renewed a lease for a building. They did a lease on some ground, open ground for a soccer team to have places for practice fields. And they approved $56 million in a renovation, and they did all that in 30 minutes. Nothing was discussed as far as the leases about how much they were, how long they were. I believe they might have mentioned how long, but they definitely didn't mention anything about money, how much it was. That was concerning to me because, again, in my research to try and find out, you know, more about the airport authority and what I could do to help, a lot of that stuff, reading back on the minutes, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, there's nothing in there about any of that kind of stuff. It's all very vague. And I think the public needs to know more about what's going on out there and how the airport authority affects them. A lot of people, when I had to walk around and get 150 signatures to get on the ballot, only 2 or 3 people out of the probably 200 or 250 that I talked to, probably 200, even knew that the airport had taxing authority. And that's a huge deal if you're a property owner, especially, but it doesn't matter. If you're an apartment renter, you're going to pay it too. I mean, it just gets passed on to you, even though you don't really get the bill from the county, but you're going to pay it. And only a fool would think you're not. But anyway, so I think that's another thing. I think, am I correct? Don't you guys have somebody that goes out and reports on the meetings?
Yes, we have a reporter that covers airport authority.
Okay, so I've never honestly read any of his stuff. Do you know, does he dig into any of that stuff, or does he just report what happens at the meeting and that's that?
Well, I think he reports the outcomes of the meeting, but they're a public body. We get an agenda, so we write about things before they appear in the meeting. I mean, there was background. There have been stories written before the meeting where they approved the plan for the improvements. There's been coverage now. Whether it's enough to your satisfaction, I couldn't say.
Well, again, I haven't read it, so I don't know. But I mean, I guess the other stuff that I've talked about, though, like does he look into, are they getting fair market value for their buildings, or are they under market value and unfair competition to other people, which is actually what I learned yesterday from one developer, that it's hard to compete because they don't have to pay property tax out there and he does, and things like that. They have an unfair advantage, and so they're able to rent for less. And again, it's hard. I haven't been able to find any documents online that shows how much they're getting per square foot or anything like that. So to me, that's what that reporter should be looking into, honestly. I mean, to let the people know what's going on and let them understand how that can affect them. But again, I'm not the one running the paper either, so I don't know what your opinion is on that.
And I'm not the one running for office. So
Well, right.
we'll address that here, but I'd like to kind of shift the focus back to what you'd have to
Sure, I got you. But part of that is what I would want to do is work with him and just explain things to the community. Is like, okay, here's what's really going on. Here's what's happening. Here's how much we're getting. Here's, that kind of stuff. I think, it's their money. It's the public's money. Everybody in this city is paying for that airport. So, and anybody that flies in and out is paying for, a ticket fee and all that too. So they're paying for it. But I just think that the part of what I would want to do is increase the transparency of what's going on there and educate the community as to what the airport authority and the airport, really have control of and are doing.
How do you, the airport authority did not use its power to levy taxes for several decades. And in that time, there's lots of other stories that are going, there are lots of other things that are happening out there. How do you make that relevant to Lincoln? We write stories, not to get back to journalism, but we write stories that sort of get people are interested in. And, an airport authority story isn't always the most read thing on our website. So, how do you educate how do you as a candidate help involve the community? How do you as an airport authority member help involve the community more in the news out there? What's happening?
Well, maybe I write an op-ed or an article or a column that you guys will print, once a month or something, and just bring up things like that. I'm sure you've heard from the other candidates that, they have 5,500 acres out there. Now, granted, a lot of that, there's a lot there where the airstrip and everything is that they obviously can't put anything on. But they also have a lot of land and a lot of buildings that could generate revenue. And that's what I mean. I think the public would probably be behind some of those projects if they understood that the profits from those were going to be used towards the levy to get the levy paid off sooner so that, you know, the small minority of the states paying for it. And again, it's still, you know, it's not like somebody in Scotts Bluff is going to be paying for it just because we rent something out. That's not what I mean. But I think they should be self-sufficient, just like I have to be. I can't just go writing checks and selling jobs for less than they're worth or whatever the case may be, and survive. But they, you know, just like any other government thing, that seems like they don't have to worry about a budget like that. And that's, I'm kind of swinging off topic there, but that's kind of what I would like to do, is just figure out a way, like whether it was a column or a Facebook page or something, you know, to have people on and understand what I'm doing and why I'm voting yes or no on what I'm voting for and what it, you know, because if all there is a yes vote or a no vote or, you know, a split vote or whatever, I don't think even that probably gets discussed very much as to why, you know, why somebody voted against it or for it. And I think that needs to be, you know, the city council, boy, when you vote against something, they start asking, you know, why'd you vote that way? And most of them have a reason. And I think we should too, as far as, I mean, we all have our reasons or would have our reasons, but I mean, publicly state why. So,
Okay, Kent, this is a good time for you to ask your question to get a little deeper into this.
Yeah, you've talked about the property. Years ago, I covered the airport, like a long time ago. And you're correct. There are a ton of buildings out there, and they have some of that farmland they obviously couldn't develop because of where it's located. But you were talking about things that you think they could do differently in the way they manage that property, and
right.
maybe some additional development. And also, I've heard of issue of a need for like improvement of the road that goes around the airport in order to be able to
Right.
do any of that. So,
Right.
can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that whole property management and that kind of stuff?
Well, I guess, I mean, I met with a developer yesterday, and I won't mention their name, but he was the one that was discussing about how he's lost a lot of potential clients out to the airport just because they are undervaluing their rental. So I guess that's one of the first things also I would look at is let's figure out what fair market value is, and we need to charge fair market value. I mean, Kent, if you owned a apartment building and you had it paid off free and clear, you wouldn't just rent it out for what you needed to pay property taxes for. You'd rent it out at fair market value and put some money in your pocket, you know, and probably improve it a little bit more because you had money. And that's kind of how I look at that out there. It's like, let's not just give it away and, you know, just to have it full. Let's fill it up with fair market value rent, and it's going to generate more money. And again, whether they use that to pay for the road, whether they use that to maybe maintain the buildings better, or a combination of the two. I just, again, it's been hard to get some information. So I guess my whole thing is I'm telling you guys what I want to do. I'm not promising I can do it just because I don't know all the bylaws and the rules, because they're fighting a lot out there when they try to do stuff. They got to worry about the FAA, the federal government, the state government, you know, the rules that came along when the Air Force or the air base gave them the land and stuff like that. So, but they have grant money too from the government for certain things. And it is harder for us to get, and I say us like I'm already there, but it's harder for the airport authority here to get money from the government because they're so close to Omaha. That causes an issue with, you know, getting some improvement money, because the government says, well, you got a big airport over there less than 50 miles away. Why do you need to be, you know, so good? So they run into that problem. So yeah, that road around the north, they do own that. And they know it's a problem and it's kind of one of their priorities. But again, until I can get in there and figure out how all that money works and what they can use and can't use, I'm not going to promise anybody I'm going to get that road fixed because I don't know if I can do it or not. And I don't want to be that guy that makes promises he can't keep.
All
Does that
right.
answer the question, Kent, or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I talked a
You-
lot, but I didn't know if I said anything or not.
You're supposed to talk a lot. That's the whole point here. Or at least about 30 minutes worth. I
Okay.
got two more questions for you. One of them, you mentioned, that it's not necessarily a field of dreams situation. If they build it, they will come. And you mentioned Omaha. We certainly do have competition for air travelers. So what do you do to, what can the airport authority do to sweeten the deal, both for the airlines and for air travelers, so that they fly out of Lincoln instead of Omaha?
Well, again, I think part of that is people like to come to Lincoln because it's simple to get through the airport. I mean, Omaha is not terrible, other than you got to drive through Omaha to get to it. That's really the downfall to Omaha. Obviously, the best scenario to me would be build one in Greenwood and close these other two or whatever as far as commercial, but that's never going to happen. So, we're always going to deal with having to compete against Omaha and Grand Island. And again, Grand Island got a lot of grant money to fix their place up because they were far enough away from anything that the government felt sorry for them and gave them money. I don't know if felt sorry is the right words, but
Yeah, I think there's an actual policy named, but yeah, I know what
yeah,
you're saying.
yeah, I get it. I'm just a little bit of sarcasm there. So getting the airlines in here, one of the other candidates, Tracy Rafier, he's got some good ideas too. He mentioned maybe doing some sort of revenue sharing or something with the airlines to kind of sweeten the deal for them to come in. I thought that was a good idea. My whole plan is to get them in here and try and make sure that the ticket pricing is, within $100 of what Omaha is or less, because that's probably about what it costs you to drive up there and park and drive back if your time's worth anything. And of course, now fuel's up to $87 a gallon. So there's a lot of cost involved in going to Omaha. And I mean, who wants to come back from a 5-day vacation all worn out and then have to drive another hour to get home? It's just not good. So
Yeah, especially if you're doing it with 6-year-old kids.
oh yeah, right. Yeah. You're carrying them and your bags and everything else because they're asleep. Yeah, it's just Lincoln is just a lot better option. But again, the pricing is usually what drives people away from Lincoln. I mean, I know I talked to a company here that flies a lot of their people around the country all the time, and they have 850 people on staff. And not all of them fly, but they fly a lot of people. And they said that they go to Omaha because even paying the hourly rate for the 2 hours of driving and the mileage, they usually save enough to justify going up there. And it's not usually just, within $2 or $3, it's a substantial difference still, even with paying that. So Lincoln needs to work on that, because I think Lincoln needs a strong airport to keep the big businesses that we have and to get more to come here. If their employees can't fly in and out of here and they're paying them to go to Omaha all the time, they might as well build in Omaha or somewhere else.
All right, last question for you, Jason, and we got just a couple of minutes. What didn't we ask you that you wish we had?
How to donate.
Okay, I gotta tell you, that's original.
Well, I really don't know of anything that I'd want to say more than I really have. I think obviously I'm running as an independent. I feel like I have a lot of good ideas that would help the airport and help the city. And but I'm an underdog for sure. I got in really late. You know, pretty much I got endorsed by the LIBA PAC, and I got a little money for that. And I've had one other guy that donated $50. Other than that, I've paid for everything myself. And I don't have the money that the other candidates have to do that. So I'm an underdog, and I think that once I'm in there, people will realize how hard I want to work to get things straightened out. And again, I'm not running for this office for what'd you ask the first question? It's not
Not the
shoot.
glory.
Glory. Yeah, I'm not running for the glory. If I was that kind of guy, I'd have been number 13 on the city council run or something like that. But I'm running to help, and I think this is a good place to start. So honestly, David, I don't know what else to tell you besides that.
That's plenty. We appreciate the time you spent with us, and we appreciate everybody who sticks their neck out to run for public office. So thanks a bunch, Jason. And did anybody else have any last questions I've neglected to ask? All right. Well, then we're all wrapped up. Jason, thanks a
Okay.
bunch.
You bet. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.
You bet. Bye.